Hi everyone. So in today's lecture, we are going to study about the multiple discriminant function analysis. We call it multiple when we have more than two groups on the dependent variable side. And as I said that it is also a counterpart to using a logit model or an LPM model. So there are obviously differences between discriminant function analysis and logit model, which I'll reserve for later when I cover up the logit model. So describing the data set, I have on the dependent variable buyer, that is my dependent variable is categorical. It has two categories, category 1, category 2, where 1 means that the person bought that particular product here being bike, and 2 means that person did not purchase that product being bike. Okay, so my dependent variable is a potential buyer, whether he purchases a bike or whether he does not. And on the independent variables, I have three attributes, the attributes which the customers think are relevant in determining their buying decision. Okay, so in the survey so conducted, all those customers who either bought or did not buy the bike were asked to rate the bike on these three attributes, and that is also recorded over here. Okay, I have data on 80 customers, so this runs from 1 to 80 as you can see. And on these 80 customers data, I'm going to use discriminant analysis in a way such that I'm going to split my data into two types. One would be the estimation sample. So out of 80 observations, I'm going to utilize my 40 observations to estimate the discriminant function. And then on the rest of the 40 observations, I'm going to check the classification. Okay, so I'll employ the discriminant function obtained from the first 40 in the latter 40. Okay, just to classify my customers in either of the groups. Okay, again, there is no hard and fast rule that you have to always split your data into estimation and a holdout sample or a validation sample. It's all up to you. I'm just doing it to make this exercise more real time and more realistic. So firstly, let's split the data. So I go to data. Okay, so for splitting, I have created a variable called split 50. That split 50 variable has values 1 till 40th observation, and later on it takes value 2 for the rest of the 40. And as I said that I'm splitting the data, so I could be splitting it for the first 40. So you go to data. Oh, sorry. You go to data, select cases, if condition is satisfied, if sample split, that's my variable, transfer it here, takes a value 1. That means I want to call upon only my first 40 observations for the analysis. Continue, click OK. And here you see what has happened is that on the rest of the 40, a demarcation has come up. That means only the first 40 would be used for estimating your discriminant function analysis. Now, there are a set of assumptions before we start on to, applying the discriminant function analysis. And those assumptions are that first one, dependent variable should be categorical and independent variable should be continuous metric. Second assumption is that your predictor variables or independent variables should be normally distributed, approximately normally distributed, and there shouldn't be outliers. Okay, outliers are a no-no in any research. Okay, third, predictor variables or the independent variables should be independent of each other, and relationship between all pairs of predictors in each group are linear. Okay, so this is another assumption. And next is the sample size ratio should be 5:1. That means for each of the independent variable, there should be at least 5 observations. For example, I have 3 independent variables here. So I should have 5 observations at least for each of these. That makes up 5 plus 5 plus 5. That means total 15 observations in my data set. At least that's a minimum. So that's like a bar on the sample. Okay. Next is there shouldn't be any multicollinearity. And lastly, a very important assumption is that uh, the the homogeneity assumption, the assumption which you come across in ANOVA also, something on those lines. So that assumption says that the variance and covariance matrices on the dependent variable should be equal. Okay, so dependent variable has groups. So for each of these groups, there is a variance covariance matrix. I'm saying that this variance or covariance matrix should be equal. So we call it homogeneity of variance assumption, and it's sort of a homogeneity of variance assumption. And to test it, we have a statistic called the boxes M statistic. Okay, that will come across when we look at the output. So overall, what is the objective of discriminant function analysis? It is to predict an object's likelihood of belonging to a particular group based on several independent variables. And throughout the analysis, the software is going to come up with ways in order to maximally discriminate between these groups. Okay, using the independent variables, I want to achieve maximum discrimination between the groups on dependent variables. Fine. Without any delay, let's start. We go to analyze, classify, discriminant. Dependent variable is potential buyer, and you have to define the range. Range means what are the values or the codes which each of the categories take on your dependent variable. So right now I have just two categories. So the least value is 1 and maximum value is 2. This you can check in the variable view. Okay, it is depicted here also anyways. But let's say you had 3 categories and then you had 1, 2 and 3 as codings. So you would give 1 in the minimum and 3 in the maximum. Continue. Statistics, means, univariate ANOVA, boxes M, unstandardized, within group correlation. Continue. Classify, case-wise results. You can limit these to your wish. I'm just limiting to 20. Summary table, leave one out, classification, combine plots. And then my data does not have any missing values. If your data does have, you can click it. Continue. Save. I want to save all of these. Continue. And about this, enter independence together or stepwise. Use the stepwise method when you have several independent variables. There's obviously a dimension to it. I'm not going into that. But yeah, when you have more than say 4 to 5 independent variables, you can choose to use a stepwise method. That just chooses independent variables quite wisely. Okay. And yeah, I think we're done. Oh, independence I did not specify. Durability, performance, and looking. Great. Click OK, and that's your output. As I said that we're going to cover discriminant function in 3 parts. This is the first part, so let's proceed with the first set of interpretations. Okay, on the face of it, what do you see? The first is a case processing summary. This is going to tell you whether you have any missing values or not, or something of that sort. I have no missing values and I have valid 40 observations. As I told, that your data is perfectly designed into 80 customers, and I'm looking at just the first 40. So that makes up the first 40. And then looking at the group statistics. Now this means that these are your 2 groups on the dependent variable, purchase, would not purchase. And these are the 3 independent variables which you have: durability, performance, looking. Okay. Now this mean depicts the mean value of dependent variable for each of the independent variables. Okay. Now what is your objective? Your objective is that the independent variables are able to maximally discriminate the groups on the dependent variable. That means if there is an independent variable, say durability, okay, and it has a mean value of dependent variable purchase as 69.05, likewise durability independent variable has mean value on the second group as 31.3. Now this means that durability as an independent variable is or could be good enough in discriminating these 2 groups, because the dependent variable means for this particular independent variable durability is quite divergent. 69 is way different from 31, correct? So this particular table gives you a sort of an idea that how discriminating could your independent variables be. Okay. Now in a similar fashion, you can look at performance. Performance has the mean of 67 on purchase, dependent variable, and then performance has a mean of 45 on would not purchase, another category in the dependent variable. That means 67 and 45 also look quite divergent, right? They're quite distinct. So again, I think performance of the bike as an attribute does a fairly good job in discriminating the groups. Then let's look at the third independent variable, looking of the bike. Looking of the bike has a mean 39.3 on purchase category, and it has a 40.9 mean on would not purchase category. Now you see that these two mean values are quite close to each other. That means looking of the bike as an independent variable might not be that discriminating. You know, its discriminating ability as an independent variable is not as good as we saw for durability or performance. Okay, but mind it, this table is just an overview. Fine, this is not having any statistical significance. This is just giving the raw data values. Okay, there is no p-value here to test this right now. The p-values is going to appear in next table, okay, where I have this one, test of equality of group means. So this table, if this is clear, you may choose to write what I just tell you, that these mean differences will allow us to use these predictors to distinguish customers, which are the observations, buying the bike, that is one of the dependent variable group, from the customers, that is again my observations, not buying the bike, that is another group. Okay, so these mean differences are highlighting how different or similar are their discriminating powers. Okay, now to statistically test this particular claim, we have the second table, that is test of equality of group means. This is like ANOVA, univariate ANOVA. Okay, the null hypothesis here is that the group mean of dependent variable is equal. Null hypothesis of equality. Okay, so I'm saying for durability as an independent variable, the mean value of my dependent variable groups is equal. Okay, and you see the p-value is 0. That means if you take an alpha of 5%, you're easily able to reject this null hypothesis in the favor of alternative, which says that group means on the dependent variable by the independent variable durability is indeed different. That means durability does a fairly good job in maybe discriminating between those two groups, right? All of this is an indication again, fine? And now confirm this result with also what you saw here, 69 versus 31. That's quite a big difference, right? And that is reflected here also by statistically testing it. Now we'll test for performance. Again, we're able to reject the null. So we're saying that performance of the bike also as an independent variable is statistically discriminating. Okay, and then looking of the bike, oops, it has a p-value of 0.747. That's way too high, you know. So if you're taking any alpha, 5% or 1%, this p-value of 74.7% is clearly greater than alpha. That means I am not able to reject my null hypothesis. And my null hypothesis is that group means are equal. That means my independent variable looking of the bike does not do a fairly good job in discriminating between the groups. Fine. So that was about these two tables. Next we have the correlation matrix. Please recall, I made you understand that one of the assumptions in multiple discriminant analysis is of no multicollinearity. Agreed? Now this table is going to give us a sneak peek into the multicollinearity assumption. So this gives you correlation figures between each of your independent variables, and if any correlation figure is greater than 0.8 or 0.9, then that indicates multicollinearity, and that's worrisome. Okay, so we see that performance of the bike and durability have a correlation of 0.15. That's fine. Looking of the bike and durability have 0.398. Likewise, looking of the bike and performance of the bike have 0.139. So all correlation figures are in a comfortable range for this data set. But you should always remember that this correlation gives us some indication of how much unique information each predictor will contribute to the analysis. If a correlation figure is high, as I said, in excess of 0.8 or 0.9, that would mean that the two independent variables are not giving unique information, but they are actually contributing shared information to the analysis. Now that is worrisome. Okay, so that way you have to be careful, and this is why multicollinearity assumption is to be met. So that's all for today's first part of the series in discriminant function analysis, and just try to digest all of it, and we'll meet again in the next video. Thank you for watching the video.